There's nothing like doing some light detective work in Victorian-era England. Or, as I like to call it, normal England. It's easy, to be honest. Collect a couple of clothing scraps, point a couple of fingers, and at the end of the day, someone ends up in jail. The only trouble is, recently there's been this one PI who's stealing the show a bit. Sherlock Holmes. Ugh. See, for almost a year now, he's been convicting people with actual evidence behind it to prove their guilt. He's so sweaty. And ever since he's come into the picture, more and more PIs like me have been going out of business. So many, in fact, that nowadays London's down to just him and me. I'm Buckwheat Grayson, a Victorian-era private investigator. Or, as I like to call it, it's a normal private it's normal for me. I'm from the Victorian. I'm the second best private eye in the whole country. But even I'm not far off from being put out of a job by the new guy, to be honest. As much as I hate to say it, I think I need to step up my game if I'm to catch up and keep my livelihood. The police just requested my presence at a small homestead just outside of London, so I suppose this will be my first chance to prove to them I've still got what it takes to be here. Just in time, Buckwheat. It's another murder, I'm afraid. This is Judith Carey. She looks okay to me. She's the wife of the victim. I thought you might want to talk to her first. The body's in the shed over there when you're ready. Of course, Inspector. Thank you. Madam, my name is Buckwheat Grayson. I assure you that I will find whoever is responsible and bring them to justice. I'm truly sorry for your loss. I'm sure your husband was a good man.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Grayson.
It's actually a compliment, if you think about it, to have a crime committed against you. I mean, I'm not saying it was a good thing, a terrible thing, very, very bad, but look, no one wants to have one of their possessions stolen, right? But we all want to possess things that would be worth stealing. Nobody boring gets kidnapped. I'm not saying I want to be kidnapped, it's just, I want to be worth being kidnapped. And your husband was worth murdering. So I'm sure he was a good man. It was time to look around the crime scene. I always hate this part of the job, but one of the officers promised me that the corpse wasn't too out of the ordinary, so at least my trust has been abused. It appears the victim has been harpooned with so much force that his body was pinned to the wall. That's hardcore. As usual, I try to keep the search for clues brief, mostly because the body is grossing me out, but also because I have a hard time focusing on tasks for long periods of time. The first things I find are a tobacco pouch, a small knife, and a notebook filled with a mysterious set of acronyms and numbers. At first glance, they would seem to be phone numbers, but that's not possible, because phone numbers don't go that high yet. Curious. A box would appear to be missing from this shelf, judging by the rectangular outline in the dust. It must have been removed recently, and the shed's feng shui has suffered dreadfully for its absence. I imagine the box would have been about this tall, as anything taller would have negatively impacted the room's vibe. If this man was good enough to be murdered, then he wouldn't have anything less than stellar decorative skills. Finally, this shelf houses the victim's old ship logs. Ship. With a P. It would appear he was the retired captain of a whaler, which explains the harpoons. Could one of his attempted quarries have finally decided to take revenge? No. That was all for inside the shed, but what's this? Prints in the mud leading to the house? How curious. But let us see. Aha. So these boot prints weren't made by the victim. That means someone else must have killed him. But who? I leave to gather my thoughts and findings, taking a carriage to Scotland Yard where I can question the two primary suspects. There's quite a lot riding on me making this look like I've done a thorough job, so I will leave no stone unturned. The first suspect is a young, weak-looking boy, found trying to break into the shed at night. The notebook found on scene is his. The other suspect is the grounds' gardener, who claims he was not working at the time, but was caught acting suspicious in the nearby area. I'll be honest with you, neither of these chaps quite fit the murder. I mean, the boy is much too weak to just harpoon a dude like that. I actually don't know how anyone pulled it off, to be honest, given the size of the room and the size of the harpoon used and the wind-up it would require, and the gardener's just a guy. Strong, certainly, but just a bloke at day's end. The old buckwheat would just pin it on him and be done with it. But if I can't make it look like he really did do it, there'll be trouble. I leave to gather my thoughts again. That's a bit of a common theme here, by the way. I get a lot of time to... I keep needing to jump from place to place with like a 12-second carriage ride each time, and it's not a big deal, it's just kind of... it adds up, and... well, anyway, enough complaining. I think we may be looking in the wrong places. Call it a gut instinct, but I don't think just anybody could pull off a javelin toss like the one that pinned Mr. Carey to that wall. No. The man would need to be trained. Something else is bothering me. The tobacco pouch, filled with a sailor's tobacco. Its initials are PC, the same as Mr. Carey, but a quick trip to the morgue shows us that his lungs were in perfect health. He wasn't a smoker. Let us review the former members of his ship. Perhaps one of them can be reasonably blamed. Ah yes, here. A harpooner with the initials PC. That really just fell into place for me. I should meet with him. These sailor types don't talk easily. I believe I'll have to strong-arm him into a confession. Excuse me, a moment of your time.
What do you want?
The truth, my dear boy, and nothing more. If I beat you at arm wrestling, you have to tell me whether or not you murdered Mr. Carey.
So, that old Mr. Carey's dead then?
Indeed. Harpooned to death.
Ironic. That old fool was always saying that the points didn't matter.
Looks like he finally found one that did. I'm getting nowhere with this. And I don't have time to either get huge nor stay huge with the gym subscription. I'll need to rely on getting him to confess, unwittingly. Pardon me, is that your tobacco pouch?
Yes, it is.
It's that easy. I believe I now possess all of the requisite pieces to solve this mystery. Yes. Yes, indeed. The investigation is concluded, and I know who did it. So let's go now on to my next case, which takes us to an expensive bathhouse where... Oh, it was the sailor, by the way. He fought the inspector when we arrested him, and I bravely apprehended him. Even if the newspaper says differently, it was actually... in the bathhouse, a man has been killed, and it's my job to find out who did it. I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure I actually got the real culprit last time, and it felt great. I want more of that. Ah, buckwheat. The body and the witnesses are through there. The baths' receptionist might have more context for you, if you'd like. Thank you, Inspector. I suppose I may have a question or two to ask him?
Did you leave the baths at any time, or receive any visitors?
No, sir. I did not.
Huh. On second thought, let's take a look at the crime scene. Rats! That's John Watson. He works with Sherlock Holmes. That little tryhard must be working this case too. I wonder what he's already found out while I was busy floundering around making my normal English breakfast. Okay, don't panic. This isn't a threat. This is an opportunity. If you can solve this case first, if you can outwit Sherlock Holmes, you won't be Buckwheat Grayson the runner-up anymore.
You just need to find a way to get Holmes's associate to spill what he knows. Charming face on, and... Hello, are you Mr. Holmes's associate? Oh, I'm afraid you've just missed him. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, in that case, why don't you just share what he's found, and I'll discuss my notes with him later. And who are you?
Buckwheat Grayson, Private Eye. I'm working with the police on this one as well. Seems they must really want this case solved if they're bringing us both in, eh? Both the big guns, me and Holmes. We both solve cases.
Ah, well, a pleasure to meet you then, Mr. Grayson. I'm sure Holmes would be happy for me to share the details with you.
Yes, get in!
The man was killed by a single stab wound to the eye, as you can see. We've been unable thus far to locate any murder weapon. There were 3 people in the room at the time, but none of them saw the murderer for the steam. One fellow does claim to have witnessed the attack, however. That blood seems a bit watery, wouldn't you say? We are in a sauna.
Eh. So, Sherlock didn't think it was relevant then?
No.
Amateur. What else can you tell me?
Nothing more at the moment. Sherlock went to analyze a chunk of melted silver he found in the brazier.
I see. Then I'll have a brief look around myself.
Something under his fingernails. I'll take a sample to analyze.
White clay particles. Interesting. According to the color and its composition, I deduce that this sample is white clay.
Selenite, pyrite. How could such minerals have found their way under dear Mr. Bentcliffe's nails? I have no idea. Okay, maybe I will speak with the witness who saw the attack, Mr. Garrow. Maybe that'll give me a lead. I'm grasping at straws.
Hello, Mr. Garrow.
Didn't I just speak with one of you private eyes?
Just give me this. Fancy an arm wrestle.
No.
Why did you kill Mr. Bentcliffe?
I'm telling you, I didn't do it.
But you claim to have seen the murder, so what happened?
I don't know. His head just did that.
Watson, my good man. I wish to discuss notes with you again. Has Sherlock made any breakthroughs?
Not yet, Mr. Grayson. But he has discovered that there was quite a bit of tension between the victim and one of the gentlemen present. Mr. Blinkhorn felt that the victim was being brought in to replace him, and would take all credit for his archaeological work on the followers of Mithras religion.
I see. And, what's Holmes's perspective on whether or not the victim's head just did that?
What?
You've given me a lot to think about, dear boy. It shouldn't be long before we have our culprit.
Do you think you're close to solving it then?
Oh yes, very close. Very close. In fact, I should be solving it tonight. I just need to look at one lead. Out of town, you wouldn't know it.
Really?
Really. I'm that good.
Would you mind if I joined you? I'm quite interested to know how this case might end.
You would be welcome to join me, Mr. Watson. What are you doing? Are you trying to read from my book?
Well, yes, the title intrigued me. I was wondering if it was worth getting for myself.
Well, if you like, I can lend you my copy once I'm finished.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
You know, I think the two of us are going to get on just splendid. Dear Diary, today I made a brand new friend. I hope we will have lots of time to play once this case is done. Excuse me, my friend here asked for a chicken sandwich without mayonnaise. Dear Diary, he likes the book. Watson, what are you doing down there?
Waiting for the next train, Buckwheat. Shouldn't be long now.
Dear Diary, thank you for giving me a new best friend. And here we are, Ancient Rome, or as I like to call it, Ancient Rome.
An abandoned archaeological site. But what are we doing here,
That's, give me a sec.
So, Mr. Bentcliffe was studying the myth of the golden knife, a curved, sacrificial blade said to be used by the god Mithras. This knife would kill anyone who touched it without being worthy. Watson, look at these metal cubes. They fit together to form a mold. See? What are you suggesting? If we fill the mold with water and freeze it, then a curved knife. The exact model of the golden dagger, I'd wager. The murder weapon was a blade made of ice. In a sauna? This would explain the excess watering down of the victim's blood. In a sauna? Come, Watson. There is one last piece of this puzzle. First, we must push in these keystones to reveal 3 symbols. Assembling them from their pillars of origin will point to this bust, which must be turned to open a doorway, behind which is a secret tunnel. But, Buckwheat, I don't understand. You already found the mold for the knife. If it was an ice knife that was used, then what are we doing? There is salt and buckets for creating ice in this tunnel. Curious. Let us continue. I do a lot more things, it's not that important. All you need to know is that I'm hard at work uncovering an ancient Roman mystery, and it's leading me all across the globe. I even found some more tunnels. I was trapped in them for days. At one point I considered eating Watson, but no, wasn't hungry. And there it is, the golden dagger of Mithras. A few wheels turned, and it's ours. Great work, Buckwheat! This artifact you uncovered using the work of various archaeologists really proves... Inspector, I believe I've uncovered the killer of Mr. Bentcliffe.
Again?
What?
We already caged the guy, Buckwheat. Mr. Blinkhorn.
Wait, Mr. Blinkhorn did it?
Yeah, it turns out it was a business dispute. The 2 just didn't get on. Where have you been?
I was just... Dr. Watson and I went off to... I just got this golden dagger.
Real gold?
Yes, real. It's an ancient Roman artifact believed to be the blade of one of their gods. Of course, it's real gold.
Okay, hold on a minute. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you all, yes.
Yes. I finally got what I've always deserved. Recognition. I used this rare chance to enjoy some time off and self-indulge just a little bit.
The best nose in the British Empire. 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 The best nose in the British Empire.
Ah, Watson. Come for another book reading session? Buckwheat, I've come to talk with you. You haven't done anything in months. You need to get out there again. Oh, nonsense. It's not nonsense. When's the last time you got a conviction? A conviction? Please, that's so small time. Do you know how many decades teams of archaeologists were looking for that dagger? Buckwheat, you found it on accident. You weren't looking for a golden... Look, all I'm saying is the money's going to run out eventually. Yes, I suppose you're right. It is a bit overdue. Been a while since I stretched the old deductive muscles. I'll go look for a murder to cover, alright? Good. Thank you. Man, I don't even want to go out there.
Oh, Mr. Grayson. It's been a while. I was hoping... I thought I wouldn't be seeing you again.
So, what's the case?
The man of the house's head was bashed in with a fire poker. His wife was tied to a chair while it happened. We're thinking robbery gone wrong. We don't have any suspects yet.
Well, it looks like we've got another good old-fashioned Victorian-era murder on our hands. Or, as I like to call it, a normal murder. I thought that the best place to start would be speaking to the victim's wife, as she saw the brutal crime. Hello, madam. My name is Buckwheat Grayson. I'm terribly sorry for your dreadful loss. Your husband must have been a good man. I hope you don't mind me asking a few questions on what you may have seen.
Yes, was the dreadful thing. I got in there, I can't think anymore.
I beg your pardon?
I say I got in there, it was real hard and can't think anymore.
She suffered a dreadful concussion, Mr. Grayson.
Oh, you... Okay.
Let me just...
I thought that the best place to start would be the dining room, the scene of the brutal crime. The victim indeed died from a hearty blow to the head from his own fire poker, but curiously, there are still plenty of valuables left behind. Indeed, only the silverware was taken. This might suggest that our thief was hungry at the time. Still, no workable witness, no clear suspects, and only half a motive. This was going to take some ruminating to figure out, if indeed I figured it out at all. My gut was telling me to pin it on the maid and be done with it. It's what I would have done once upon a time, but today, with everything I've been through, the thought disgusted me. I had such great potential. I caught a real murderer. I solved an ancient mystery. Yet still, I found myself wanting to take the easy way out. Maybe I didn't deserve to be a private eye after all. Sherlock Holmes, now he was willing to put in the effort. It came so naturally to him. He found the murderer of Rodney Bentcliffe with actual evidence while I was off chasing an Italian visa. What kind of man did I want to be? I knew the answer. This was just my first opportunity to admit it. I wanted to be like him. No, I wanted to be better than him. I wanted to convict only the actually guilty. I wanted to do it faster than he could, with more certain evidence than he ever could. I wanted the next time we were both assigned the same case to be the time I show the world that Buckwheat Grayson could be the best private investigator in London. I wanted... Is that the stolen silverware? At the bottom of the well? Wait. Hold on. This wasn't a real robbery. No, not at all. Somebody wanted the victim dead. They spared his wife and made out like it was a thief job so we'd have a harder time finding the motive for murder. The length of rope used to restrain the victim's wife was tied with a sailor's knot, and it has a cut matching that caused by a sailor's knife. It's a long shot, but if a sailor's responsible, perhaps we could find them and bring them to justice. We know what ship the victim's wife was brought to England aboard, so that's as good a place to start as any. I will have the police inspector send the staff of that ship to my apartment for a series of interviews. Oh, this will make for an easy arm wrestle. Perhaps I should go for a more subtle approach on the next fellow. Hello. Do you know Lady Brackenstone?
Oh no, not you!
What?
You're Buckwheat Grayson. You nabbed my brother for a murder he didn't do. He got a life sentence.
Ah, you've heard of me. Well, I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised.
My brother wasn't even in London at the time. He was out at sea, whaling.
This isn't about your brother, Mr. Crocker. This is about you. And frankly, it sounds to me like you're the one wailing right now. Get over yourself.
I'm done, aren't I? You're sending me to jail too. Probably found my fingerprints all over the silverware. Fine. Since I'm gone either way, I admit it. I killed him. But you're not ruining my life like you did my brother's. I'm going out on my own terms.
Buckwheat, he's going to shoot himself!
Oh, quit your whining. I'm not arresting you. Not yet, anyway.
What? But you've got me. You've got all the evidence.
Not all the evidence, chap. A lesser detective might stop at sufficient evidence, but I suspect there's still some more I can find to really show off my evidence-gathering skills.
But I just confessed. And there's a witness in the room.
Mr. Crocker, please. I'm hardly going to convict you without having all the evidence. I have standards.
You sent my brother to jail without any evidence.
Yes, standards. Plural, I have 2 of them. Listen, Mr. Crocker, why don't you just put this to the side for now, and I'll get back to you in a bit, Are you quite sure, Mr. Grayson? I think the evidence you've gathered is quite enough. Don't worry so much, dear Watson. I'm Buckwheat Grayson, for crying out loud. I'll have this fellow locked up in no time.